Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there, and a welcome to you all. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm trying a new headset, which I'm having trouble keeping on my head. Here, hang on. Okay. And, whenever you throw one more piece of technology my way, the odds that things will go smoothly are, well, just saying. So, anyway, I am hoping that actually the audio is going to improve for you with this, and just in general. Okay, whatever, that's that. Hello, welcome to the show. It is August, it's August 4, 2025, and we are living in a nightmare called the Trump era. And don't think it won't be. I mean, not only a nightmare, but called the Trump era. I mean, he will bestride history and be given huge swaths of time that will be said to have been shaped by him. It is an appalling thought, and it is something that you and I will bear a measure of responsibility for, because he arose out of our country by virtue of our electoral system and the voter's choice. And I've been thinking more and more about that, because I can't come up with any positive explanation of how the American people voted for this guy the first time, but that they voted for him the second time is the most extraordinary. I know some people put a lot of stock in the fact that both times the Democrats put up a woman to run against him, and that peeled off votes. I'm sure it did. It also should have attracted a few, I would think. But the fact that... The reason I'm saying this is I read this, I don't know, my head has been roiling about the consequences of what we did. And I say we, even if you didn't vote for him, I didn't vote for him, but I don't think that lets us quite totally off the hook for the responsibility of what has happened to our body politic, to our country, in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. We're part, we the people, are a collective, however riven it may be. And that the American people would elect this man once they knew him, that's the second time, says something about the American people. And they've done, those who did it, have done, I think, irreparable damage, not only to our country, but to the lives of countless millions of human beings all over the globe. I mean, the damage, once you start to try to take it in, is, it's awesome indeed. So, since last we spoke, I've read so many things. One thing I read is that Michael Wolff, the creep who has done, I think he's a creep, but I also think he has had access to Donald Trump, writing books and articles about him, and he's been following him for a long, long time. And I saw something that Michael Wolff said about an interview he'd done, ages ago with Jeffrey Epstein. And what was it made me pause. So here we have what I think of as two monsters: Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein. And Michael Wolff said to Epstein, "You've got so much stuff on him," on Trump. Oh, Mike has popped from either lack of or being too close to your lips. Okay. Okay. I'll move it around a little bit. Okay, just keep letting me know. Keep feeding back, okay? I'll keep moving the mic around, trying to get it in the right place so that it's not popping. But for those of you who are saying you're hearing noises that you've never heard, whatever, keep letting me know, and we'll see if this thing goes. We think we might have gotten a cheapo thing that we're going to have to upgrade, because that's the way we operate, okay? So anyway, Wolff says that he asked Epstein, why don't you put it out there? All the stuff you've got on him. And Epstein said, this is the quote that Wolff gives, "I may be a pervert, but I'm not crazy." And Wolff pressed him further, and he said, look, Trump is a man without scruples. He was terrified of him. So that, of course, brings up, takes us back to his suicide. The missing parts of the video, the fact that there were sleeping guards and my God. So here the very real possibility, again, not that this is new, that in fact Epstein had ample reason to fear Trump, because he did know how culpable Trump was in regard to underage girls. But Epstein, who nobody ever said was stupid, did, I think, fear for his life, because Trump has no scruples. Epstein saying that seems to imply that he has some. Had some. Okay, so then that brings me to the other piece I read, which was in the Atlantic, and it was by Arthur C. Brooks. And he writes about sociopaths. And there is no doubt that this man that Americans elected twice is a sociopath. No need to bring in psychiatrists and spend time with him. He has played out on a global stage his pathology. And Brooks' piece is not actually about Trump. It's not about Trump. The piece is called A Defense Against Gaslighting Sociopaths. And the piece is really about what you do if you're confronted in your day-to-day life with this certain kind of gaslighting sociopath, which certainly is what we're all enduring now, living in Trump's America, Trump's world. Telling us that what we're seeing, we're not seeing, telling us that black is white, telling us that this is rigged and that is untrue, telling us he did this and that, none of which is true. He is a classic, cannot help himself, gaslighter. And Brooks says there are plenty of people amongst us who suffer from these same pathologies. And there is even an acronym that refers to the way they operate with other people. And it's called DARVO, D-A-R-V-O. And that stands for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Now you tell me if we haven't watched that play out over and over and over again on a daily basis with the sociopath that your fellow Americans elected. He denies it. He then turns and attacks. And he then, no matter how fanciful it may seem at first, somehow manages to turn himself into the victim, not the offender. DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Now, psychiatrists know about all this stuff. If they deal with people suffering this kind of mental illness, sociopathic personalities. And we end up dealing with this kind of, who hasn't, like somehow been involved in something where somebody has, openly lied, knowing they're lying, and has said, no, I didn't do that, and then they point at you, they did it. Or somebody, let's say, who takes your idea and claims it as their own, right? And shows no compunction whatsoever about doing it. That is somebody who employs that kind of gaslighting. But when I read this article, it was like it was reading about Donald Trump and specifically his mental illness. So, looking further into this, Arthur Brooks tells us the most effective gaslighters, the people who do this DARVO like magicians. And I'll tell you who's at the head of the class, obviously. If you look further into that specific really good gaslighter, psychologists have come up with another term called the dark triad. And that dark triad defines about 7% of our fellow humans who have way above average levels of 3 of the negative personality traits that make you into a sociopath. The dark triad. That's narcissism, Machiavellianism. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get what I want. And psychopathy, psychopathology. I have no empathy. I have no remorse for what I'm doing. Stop and think about that. That dark triad that is the definition of a sociopath is an absolute definition of the man that we have all come to know by virtue of his very public performance of this kind of mental illness. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and total lack of empathy and willingness to hurt you. In fact, some say it should be, add one more to the triad, that it should be 4 things, and sadism, the more than willing to hurt somebody, is also part of the pathology. So, I'm reading this article. It is not, I swear to God, I mean, I'm sure as he's writing and he knows people reading this are going to think, good God in heaven, it's Trump. And I think keeping this in mind, that he is truly mentally ill, but with an illness that is all about himself and power and not giving a damn what he does to get it and keep it. So there's the explanation of the world we're living in, of the fact that you can't stand to pick up a newspaper or look at your phone at what just happened. What did he just do now? The sadistic aspect of his personality, the vengeful aspect, the I'll get you if you cross me, is what has given him total control of one of the 2 political parties in this country. That, and of course, the fear and cowardice of the members of that party. Epstein feared him. The United States Senate fears him. The United States House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House, the Vice President, fear him. His cabinet fears him. It's exactly what he wants. So, guys, I don't know if we get out of this. I really don't know if we get out of this. Even this insane, what he's about to do to the White House, this renovation, right? this renovation. He's turning the White House into Mar-a-Lago with all its grotesqueries and gaudiness. He's already begun that. We see what he's done to the Oval Office. Even Louis XIV would walk into it and say, God almighty, what the hell? But this thing about the ballroom and adding on to the White House to build it. What he's talking about building is so huge that people who know about construction are saying, I mean, it's barely going to even be able to get completed before his term is up. It's just another example of how he's not intending to leave. He's renovating his house. He paved over the effing rose garden. Everything this man touches is made ugly and dies. Heather Cox Richardson, though, did let me know that he's got the right, apparently, to do the White House renovation thing. The White House is exempt from all of those rules and laws that govern what you can do with historical buildings. It's why people don't ever want, their home to be designated. Well, they don't. Some do. But a lot of people don't ever want their home to be designated a historic site, because then it ties their hands into what they can do. And so, that is, he can do whatever he damn well pleases. And other presidents have. The East Wing wasn't there when Franklin Delano Roosevelt took up residence in the White House. We think of that current place as what's always been, not true. And he added the East Wing, but get the reason Richardson says that the East Wing was added is that they needed to build a bunker in the White House. This is during the war. It was 42. They needed, I suppose, who knows, in case the Japanese or the Germans managed to bomb, they needed a bunker at the White House. But they didn't want the public to know they were building a bunker at the White House. So to cover up the fact that they were building a bunker, they built an addition. Which, come to think of it, as I say this, makes me wonder if the big, beautiful ballroom that who's building is also a cover for something else. God help us. So they were building a bunker, and they put on the East Wing. God. I don't know where I think maybe this was Richardson who said this. Vulgarity is endemic to democracy. That's an interesting question. Well, it explains how, again, Trump got elected. The big question that Trump's election raises, in my mind, that, no one wants to go there, is, does it suggest his re-election especially, does it suggest that democracy is not a good idea? If the people elect a sociopath because of their inability to make sound judgments, then are you sure you want to give all the people this power? Look what they did. Now, I know there's lots of quotes. Is it Churchill? I don't know. Churchill, Shakespeare, the Bible. Those are the three that are always getting credited. But is it Churchill who said that democracy is, a pretty awful system, but it's better than any... that's not what he said. He said it in a more Churchillian manner. But it's the best of all the bad ones. I don't know. But, man, Americans have sure shown the world that maybe democracy ain't all it's cracked up to be, because it relies on an informed and serious citizenry. Anyway, Heather Cox Richardson said vulgarity is endemic to democracy, and it's particularly endemic now to a democracy that elected Donald Trump twice. There you go. I would say, though, that suggests more than vulgarity. But she says his beautiful ballroom is the least of the damaging legacies that he's going to leave us. It'll be a mere footnote amongst the carnage, right? Those are my words, not hers. Yeah, true. Man. So again, just back to this sociopath who is our president. I hadn't seen this quote. I must admit, I must be, I didn't even realize how much I guess I sort of allowed my attention to flag a bit, because it is so extraordinarily dispiriting to watch what's happening, the destruction. It just guts you. So I hadn't seen this. I didn't pay any attention when he was over in Scotland. But I guess he sat down at one point with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And here's a quote which I hadn't seen. I mean, again, you just want to... We should bow our heads in shame that we have elevated this lunatic to beset and besiege the world. Here's a quote. It's just one of, I'm sure, the gazillion things he said that particular day. But this one struck a nerve with me. I've stopped 6 wars in the last, I'm averaging about a war a month. But the last 3 were very close together. India and Pakistan and a lot of them. Congo was just, and Rwanda was just done. But you probably don't know. I won't go into it very much because I don't know the final numbers yet. I don't know. Numerous people were killed, and I was dealing with two countries that we get along with very well, very different countries. They've been fighting for 500 years intermittently, and we solved that war. You probably saw it just came out over the wire. So we solved that. I'm just saying. You'll get a gold star if you can tell me what 6 wars did Donald Trump solve. Can you help me here? I mean, you guys are a bunch of news junkies. So imagine what goes through the Prime Minister of Great Britain's head as he sits there listening to this this mentally ill man yammer. Can you imagine? And then, of course, the job numbers. Well, here you go. Here you go. You don't like the numbers? Well, this is the classic shoot the messenger. So, it isn't funny. It will undermine so many things that are foundational to a functioning economy and government. Throughout my life, I've watched these stats come out, and I've watched White Houses try to spin the bad ones and trumpet the good ones, but never, ever, ever. But then, is anyone surprised? He loses an election. It was rigged. The job numbers are not good. Rigged. You know, his pathology is so transparent, is so, if he had any self-awareness, well, maybe if he had any self-awareness, he wouldn't be able to have become president. I don't know. But I can only go with my own psyche. When I know that there's something about myself that is not particularly attractive, feelings I might be having or whatever, I have this mechanism that tells me to not let other people know it. To protect my reputation as a relatively nice, functional person. He doesn't give a damn. But it's the fact that all of the people watching this transparent performance don't see it for what it is, what it unmasks. They look at him and they see strength. They look at him and they see masculinity. They look at him and they see a kind of ruthlessness that they would like themselves to be able to employ. My God. They see somebody they would like to emulate. Can you imagine? Which is why I go back to, are you sure this democracy thing is a good idea? Remember in his first term, the hurricane thing where he redrew the map with his Sharpie about where the hurricane was heading? I mean, this guy is nuts. He doesn't like reality. He thinks he can control it. He thinks he can control the weather. He thinks by simply denying that greenhouse gases are impacting the globe in not good ways, that'll take care of that. We just say it's not happening. To take out of all the history books all the parts that, don't make the U.S. look particularly like a shining city on the hill, well, yeah. You can rewrite history. You can rewrite science. You can rewrite the labor statistics. But the real damage here is that what he is doing is putting every federal worker on notice that if you tell me something I don't want to hear, you're gone. I don't care if you're a scientist. I don't care if you're an economist. I don't care if you're an intelligence analyst. I don't care if you're sitting here in my cabinet. You are all on notice. You tell me something I don't want to hear, and you are gone. Whoa. Living in a nightmare. Living in the alternative reality of a sociopath, a very sick man who is the commander-in-chief of the world's greatest military, and who could, with one touch of his finger, take everyone out. You tell me if he's going to leave the White House. Seriously. You tell me. And barring that, tell me if the audio's better. I mean, better than it was last week with this microphone here. And if those sounds you were hearing have gone, just let me know. It would be helpful to me. Robert says, did you hear that they let go of a couple of talented women at KDKA? No. Kim Gable and Lindsay Ward. You know how out of it I am. I don't know either of those names because I don't watch local stuff. But Robert is suggesting possibly because of the Trump settlement with CBS Paramount. What? It went down to get rid of... Are they black women? Are they black women? I don't know who they are. Is that what you're saying? They're black women. Whoa. 2 black women disappeared from KD? Well, you know, I was thinking, yeah, people are disappearing all over the place. We live in a scary, and it will only get worse. We live in a very well-heeled banana republic. Thank you, Milton. Gigi, thank you. Okay. Audio is better than last week and much improved since the beginning of today's show. Okay, good. Well, then, I'm sorry, I keep hitting it. That doesn't help. But, okay, so I've got the mic positioned better then. And this is an improvement over the mic we had, which is really good. And I want to thank one of you, Doug, I believe, yeah, for getting in touch and saying, you need to do something with that audio, and sort of giving me the push I needed. So thank you. Okay, so, and the other thing that I just have to, they did it before, the Democrats in Texas, literally running, abandoning their families, their homes, the state, and running to get away from the Texas legislature, so by doing so, they deny the Texas legislature a quorum, enough people on hand to do business, because the business they are intending, the Republicans, to do is further dismantling democracy at the behest, of course, of the sociopath, who fears that the next time the people are allowed to vote in November of 26, that they will kick out his Republican-controlled House. And so he's got Texas rejiggering their district lines to create more Republican seats. Anyone who doesn't see that this is not what a democracy is supposed to do, well, whatever. I'm just, and he takes us all down, because it is true that you have to fight fire with fire. So if they do this, they'll manage to do it at some point. I guess if the Democrats in the legislature were in Texas, they could literally be dragged, right, by Texas Rangers or something into the chamber so that their bodies would count toward the quorum, which is why they've got to get out of range of the Texas Rangers. But I saw, Republicans, these guys, again, because they're doing the crazy guy's bidding, they cannot bother with things like the law or precedent. Give me a break. Or gentlemen's rules or honorable conduct or whatever, any of it, out the window. Raw power is all that is to be sought and employed. So I guess, what did he say? The Texas governor actually has now said that he will declare the missing Democratic members of the legislature felons, which will allow him to give him the full extradition authority to demand their return. What? Give me a fucking break. He's going to call them felons because a bunch of them went to Illinois, and Governor Pritzker there, I guess, gave them room and board. And so he said they have accepted money, which, what, makes them a felon? If accepting money makes you a felon, then what's the guy in the White House? What would you call him? You just can't. Just can't. You know, I read a book review of a book about the Iranian Revolution, and you know the Shah, who was our guy, and him running, and then the Ayatollah Khomeini ascending, and the book shows how it was just almost total malfeasance on the part of American foreign policy that created the whole thing. None of it would have happened. If you left it to the people in Iran, there would have been a better outcome, because all they ended up getting is replacing one despot, the Shah, with an even more bloodthirsty, scary despot, the Ayatollah. But one of the parts of the book review is explaining how out of it the Shah was, how he was so separated from anything that was really going on, and he had full power, so that anyone around him had to tell him what he wanted to hear. I'm reading this about the Shah, and all I'm again seeing is Trump, Trump, Trump. Here's one sentence. The Shah's story affords a timely lesson in the dangers of unmooring a society from reality, rewriting its history, and ignoring its laws. Well, guys, there you go. That is exactly what Donald Trump is doing here. What the Shah did in Iran. And how did that turn out? I'm just asking. And they go on to talk about how he lived in this sort of make-believe world that was enforced by this security apparatus and that terrorized anybody who might have thought about what? Speaking truth to power? So yeah, I say that because if you look at history and you look at what happened to other nations and other peoples who had leadership like we now have, it does not end well. Ain't no way it ends well. And then, if you'll allow me, Gaza. I want to share with you something written by Ahmad Fuad Al-Khatib, who, let me tell you who he is. He is a native of Gaza. He's a political analyst. He is the head of something called Realign for Palestine. So he is an academic, a Gazan, and his specialty is this area. Ahmad Fuad Al-Khatib. And I just want to share some of what he says, because I find it powerful. First of all, he says, look, Israel doing what it's doing with the food aid there has attracted the justified condemnation of the international community, and I agree with that. But then he says this, and this is what a lot of folks aren't getting here. The aid shipments that are going in are being seized. They can't distribute them. They're being seized by either desperate civilians, some of whom end up being shot dead by the Israelis trying to get the stuff to the place where it's supposed to be, lawless gangs, clan-affiliated thugs, and merchants of death. That's who this guy says is grabbing the aid. And there is no denying the reality of the malnutrition and hunger. And he says he has spoken to Gazans who are just, I mean, they're desperate and they're enraged. And he quotes some. Here's one quote. These hordes of selfish people who are attacking the convoys to steal and collect the aid in a horrific manner without caring for us who choose not to participate in these humiliating and demeaning displays of inhumanity. So the people who are following the rules are just enraged at their fellow Gazans. And here's a quote I thought, whoa. Here is another person he quotes. Hitler fought in his bunker until he killed himself in World War II. Hamas is hunkered down in its tunnels, willing to see Gaza destroyed to the very last child. And that's what so many don't get. It has been the game plan for Hamas all along, to kill as many of their own so they can get Israel dead. And this guy, a Gazan, an academic who wants a Palestinian state, says Hamas actually wants this famine in Gaza because producing mass death from hunger is their final card to play. Its last hope for ending the war in a way that will advance its goals. No doubt Hamas has benefited from Israel's stupid decision, to use food as a lever against the terror group, because the catastrophic conditions for civilians have generated an international outcry, which is worsening Israel's global standing and forcing it to reverse course. So, yeah, you have such a bumbling Israeli government. It's a cruel, ugly, bumbling Israeli government. I saw a quote from George Conway. I thought it was like, Israel policy is morally wrong and strategically flawed. Yes, but never forget that at the base is Hamas, who from day one on October 7, 2023, set this in motion using Palestinian women and children and elderly and sick and civilians as their human shields as they took cover in their tunnels. You also have the development of Arab states actually now calling for Hamas to surrender, to give it up, in case you hadn't seen that. The Arab League, I think representing 22 Arab states, the European Union, a bunch of other nations, condemned Hamas's October 7 attack, their hostage taking, and then signed on to this: Hamas must end its rule in Gaza and hand over its weapons to the Palestinian Authority. Now, the Palestinian Authority is a whole other can of worms. It is ineffective as a governing agent, but it is not anywhere near as monstrous and evil as Hamas. So this guy says that Arab states have been reluctant to call out Hamas publicly, even though privately they do it on a regular basis. And the reason they don't is they're scared of their own people who have been brainwashed that Hamas is some kind of wondrous group of liberators. But even the Arab states now recognize the importance of openly calling for Hamas to give up, get out, disarm, and call it a day. So, just sharing that with you. Ahmad Fuad al-Khadib, that was published in The Atlantic, my favorite publication. Thank you all for telling me that the sound is better with an occasional noise, which may in fact be me. I don't know. Hey, I have to again remind you that I will not be here next week. I'll be in Green Bay for my mom's 103rd birthday. Man, I mean, she's starting her 104th year. God. I'll tell you, she is slowing down, but much to our surprise. This is the first year that she has not been able to swim. She gave it a shot, but just couldn't. So the great lady is not as powerful as she has been, but at 103, she's entitled. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be there next week, but I'm also, I will not be here this Thursday, because that's the day I'm actually going to travel. Okay? So, God. I so don't like to travel. There was an article I avoided that I saw somewhere that somehow Americans increasingly not wanting to leave their homes is isolating us further and further from one another. And I was thinking, oh, geez. I mean, I don't want to be part of that kind of a negative trend. So I'll try to get out a little bit more. Oh, and I was out the other day. I just have to tell you, I'm sure you've heard this, but I never had. I was walking my dog, and I came upon two women who looked a little bewildered. They'd come up to a street where they could turn this way or that way, and they just stood there for a while. And as I walked by, I heard one of them say to the other, well, you know, my mom always told me that if you come to a fork in the road, take it. I laughed out loud. I never heard that. That's great. That's just great. Ah, yes, wise words from my mother. If you come to a fork in the road, take it. It was true then, it's true now.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.